Welcome to the AnzenGuard podcast. I'm Michael Reynolds, and we're diving deep into rootkits today. Joining me is cybersecurity expert Laura Wilson.
Always glad to be here, Michael. Rootkits are pretty fascinating.
Sure, but also a little creepy. Like, what even is a rootkit?
Think of it this way. It's like a burglar sneaking into your house, and instead of stealing anything, just changes the locks.
Oh, okay. So they're setting up shop.
Exactly. They install hidden cameras, rig the phone lines, the whole nine yards. They want complete control, but from the shadows.
So it's like they're taking over your device without you even knowing.
Exactly. And the term rootkit itself is a bit of a giveaway. You know how root means admin access, like the highest level in those Unix or Linux systems?
Yeah, okay, get that.
Well, you combine that with kit, like a set of tools, and boom, you've got a rootkit. It's basically a hacker's toolkit for ultimate control.
Oh, so they get that top-level access and just go to town.
Pretty much. And the chaos they can cause? Well, it's a long list.
Lay it on me.
Stealing data, passwords, financial info.
Oof. That's bad enough.
But wait, there's more. They can also turn your computer into a zombie.
A zombie. Like, it doesn't work right anymore.
It works, but for them. It becomes part of a botnet. Basically, a whole army of infected computers that hackers can use to send spam or launch attacks.
So my computer could be attacking other people without me knowing.
And to add insult to injury, they disable your security software, so you're extra vulnerable.
It's like disabling the alarm system while robbing the house.
A perfect analogy. And it gets worse. It's not just computers anymore.
What do you mean? Like phones?
Phones, smart fridges, thermostats, even cars.
What if
If it has software, it could be vulnerable.
Okay, I'm officially freaked out. So these rootkits, are there like different types?
Oh, for sure. 6 main categories, each with its own level of sneakiness.
Hit me with it. What's the worst one?
Hardware or firmware rootkits. They infect the hardware itself. Hard drive, router, even the BIOS.
You know, the BIOS. That's like the core of your computer,
That's
right?
it. Right. So even if you wipe your computer clean, the rootkit could still be there.
Ugh, that's terrifying. Are the others that bad?
Well, there's the bootloader rootkit. It messes with how your computer starts up.
How?
Replaces the legitimate bootloader with a malicious one. So it gets in before your defenses even have a chance.
So sneaky.
Then you have the memory rootkit. It hides in your RAM.
So it's harder to detect.
Harder to detect, but it also disappears when you reboot. A bit of a temporary annoyance.
Okay, so like a short-term squatter. What about the ones that go after specific programs?
Ah, you're thinking of application rootkits. They infect common software like Microsoft Office, even Notepad.
Wait, Notepad? Seriously?
Yeah. They run normally, so you might not even notice anything's wrong.
So they're hiding in plain sight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the big kahuna, the kernel mode rootkit. This one infects the kernel, the brain of your operating system.
And that's bad because
Because it gives the attackers deep control. They can do pretty much anything. Intercept system calls, manipulate data, even hide themselves from security software.
wow, okay. That's like a spy right in the heart of your government.
Yeah.
Anything else that's that sophisticated?
Last but not least is the virtual rootkit. It runs beneath your operating system, making its own virtual world where it hides.
So my computer is trapped in a virtual prison.
In a sense, yes. So we have all these different types of rootkits, and they sound impossible to detect. It's not easy, that's for sure. But there are signs, subtle clues they can leave behind.
Like what?
Lots of computer crashes, blue screens of death, that could be a rootkit.
So those blue screens are actually trying to warn me.
It's your computer trying to send a smoke signal. Or what about your browser? Is it doing anything weird?
Like what?
Strange bookmarks? Redirects to weird websites?
It does feel like my internet is haunted sometimes.
A rootkit could be messing with your browsing experience. Or maybe your computer's just really slow lately.
Now that you mention it, yeah, it has been a bit sluggish.
If it's suddenly freezing up or unresponsive, a rootkit could be hogging your system resources.
So it's not just the data they steal, it's also how they mess with my computer's performance.
Right. And have you noticed any weird changes to your settings?
What do you mean?
Like your screensaver randomly changing, or your taskbar disappearing. Even the date and time could go haywire.
It's like coming home and finding someone rearranged all your furniture.
Exactly. And sometimes a rootkit can even mess with your internet connection. Websites loading slowly, things not working properly.
Okay, so if it feels like my internet is possessed, a rootkit could be the culprit.
It's possible. But let's say you think you might have a rootkit. How do you even find it?
That's what I'm wondering. Are there like rootkit detectors?
There are, but it's tricky. Antivirus software with rootkit scanning is a good start.
So my regular antivirus might not be enough.
It might not catch everything. Rootkits are always evolving.
So we need to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. There are more advanced methods too, but they often require expert help, like memory dump analysis.
What's that?
It's where experts analyze what the rootkit is doing in your computer's RAM.
So like digital detective work.
Very much so. They're looking for those digital fingerprints, and there's also behavioral analysis.
What's that? Like they watch how my computer behaves.
Essentially, yes. Looking for suspicious processes, file changes, network traffic, anything out of the ordinary.
So it's like watching someone to see if they're acting suspicious.
Exactly. But let's say, worst case scenario, you find a rootkit. How do you get rid of it?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
Unfortunately, it's not as simple as deleting a file. Rootkits dig deep. Sometimes you need special tools.
Special tools, like what?
There are some programs designed for specific rootkits, like Kaspersky's TDS Killer. But sometimes the only solution is a complete system wipe.
You mean like reinstalling the whole operating system?
It's a last resort, but sometimes it's the only way to truly get rid of it.
That sounds like a major headache.
It can be. That's why prevention is so important. It's much easier to keep rootkits out than to try to remove them.
Okay, so how do we do that?
It's not as complicated as you might think. First, a good cybersecurity solution with rootkit scanning, like having a security guard for your computer.
Got it. What else?
Keep your software updated. Seriously, those updates often include patches that fix the vulnerabilities rootkits use.
So those annoying update notifications are actually important.
They are, and be careful what you click on. Don't download anything from suspicious websites or open attachments from people you don't know.
So it's like being careful what you eat. You wouldn't just take candy from a stranger.
A perfect analogy. Maintain a healthy digital diet. And use strong passwords. Enable two-factor authentication.
2 locks on the door.
You got it.
Yeah.
And be cautious about using public Wi-Fi.
Like at coffee shops and stuff.
Exactly. Those networks are often unsecured, which makes it easier for hackers to get in.
Makes sense. What about antivirus software? Is that still important?
Absolutely. Antivirus is still crucial. It's like a security system for your computer.
So it's like having a security guard specifically trained to spot rootkits.
You could say that. And speaking of real-world examples, have you heard of Stuxnet?
Stuxnet. Rings a bell, but I don't remember what it is.
It was a super sophisticated rootkit that targeted Iran's nuclear program back in 2010.
Whoa, so rootkits can be used as weapons.
Absolutely. Stuxnet was basically a cyber weapon.
That's both fascinating and terrifying.
It is. And then there was Flame.
Flame.
It was discovered in 2012, used mainly for cyber espionage in the Middle East.
I could do.
Steal data, record audio, capture screenshots, monitor network traffic, the whole shebang.
So it's like a super spy tool.
Basically, yeah. And then there's Zero Access.
Another one.
This one infected millions of computers, creating a massive botnet for cyber attacks.
So they can control a whole army of computers with these things.
That's the scary part.
So we talked about Stuxnet, Flame, Zero Access. But what about this spicy hot pot rootkit you mentioned earlier? What's that all about?
Spicy hot pot. This one's interesting because it's a bit different. It hijacks browsers, but uses kernel mode drivers to do it.
So it's a browser hijacker, but more sophisticated.
Exactly. And these kernel mode drivers make it really hard to remove. They hide its presence and activities, even from administrators.
So it's like a ghost in the machine. How do you even get rid of something like that?
It's tough. CrowdStrike, the company that found it, had to get creative.
What'd they do?
Spicy Hot Pot hid its drivers in a special folder and used a filter to make them invisible. So CrowdStrike just renamed the folder.
They just renamed it.
Yep. That broke the filter, the files became visible, and they could finally remove the rootkit.
That's some clever thinking. Wow, Laura, this has been incredibly informative. It's scary stuff, but I feel like I'm starting to understand it better now.
That's the goal. The more you understand, the better you can protect yourself.
That's for sure. And to all our listeners, we'll be back with more on rootkits in part 2 of this deep dive. Stay tuned. So before we move on, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about prevention. You know, like preventing rootkits in the first place.
Absolutely. Prevention is key.
But for those of us who aren't, cybersecurity experts, what can we actually do?
Think of it like building up your immune system, but for your devices.
Okay, I like that. So what are the digital vitamins we need?
First and foremost, keep your software updated. I know, you hear it all the time.
It does get a little repetitive.
But those updates often include patches for the vulnerabilities that hackers use to install rootkits.
So those update notifications are kind of like little digital vaccines.
Exactly. And be very careful about what you download. Stick to trusted sources and websites you know.
Okay, makes sense.
And definitely don't click on suspicious links or open attachments from people you don't know.
Because you never know what could be lurking in there.
Right. Think before you click. And while we're talking about good habits, strong passwords, two-factor authentication, use them whenever you can.
Double the protection.
Exactly. And be careful about using public Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah, like at coffee shops and airports?
Those networks can be really insecure, makes it easy for hackers to snoop or even install malware.
So what do you do if you have to use public Wi-Fi?
A VPN. It encrypts your traffic, so it's much safer.
So like a little secret tunnel for your data.
You got it. And of course, don't forget about antivirus software.
That's still important.
Absolutely. It's a crucial part of your digital security.
Like a security guard for your computer.
Exactly. Always good to have that extra layer of protection. So we've talked about a lot of technical stuff today, but really, cybersecurity is about awareness.
What do you mean?
It's about understanding the risks and taking steps to protect yourself. It's an ongoing process. The threats are always evolving, so we need to stay informed.
So it's like staying up to date on the latest health news.
Exactly. There are tons of resources out there to help you stay informed. Websites like CrowdStrike and Kaspersky, they have great information on the latest threats.
So it's a constant learning process.
It is. And if you're ever unsure about something, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are experts out there who can help you.
Good to know there's help if we need it. Well, Laura, this has been incredibly helpful. Even though it's a bit scary, I feel a lot more confident now knowing what to look out for.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand these threats, the better you can protect yourself.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Rootkits. Be sure to tune in for part 3, where we'll wrap things up and talk about some final takeaways.
So, wrapping up our Rootkit deep dive, any final thoughts for our listeners?
Well, first off, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, don't worry. It's a lot to take in. But just remember, the more you know, the better you can protect yourself.
Absolutely. And cybersecurity is always evolving, so it's a constant learning process.
Right. Like you said, it's like building up your digital immune system. Got to stay up to date on those digital vitamins.
Exactly. And if you ever have any doubts or questions, don't hesitate to reach out to a cybersecurity professional.
There's no shame in asking for help, especially when it comes to something as important as your digital security. Well, Laura, this has been awesome. Thanks again for joining us and for making Rootkits, well, a little less scary.
My pleasure. It's always great to talk about cybersecurity and hopefully empower people to stay safe online.
And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Rootkits. Remember, you're listening to the AnzenGuard podcast. I'm Michael Reynolds.
And I'm Laura Wilson.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, and share it with your friends. The more people we can educate about cybersecurity, the better.
Absolutely. Spreading the word is one of the best ways to stay ahead of the bad guys.
Well said. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay safe out there in the digital world.